Hey, HFH fam, Courtney Brooke here, your host for the Hustle for Happiness podcast. And today is our 50th episode. Thank you guys so much for being listeners and viewers. And if you're new here, welcome to the HFH fam. I am so happy to have you guys. And thank you so much for showing up for yourself, because that's what this podcast is about. You're showing up for yourself. And if you can take one thing away from each episode, that's my gift to you. Just one thing. And today we have the wellness expert who's been transforming lives before it was cool, Brandon Wimpey. Brandon Wimpey is back, and he has decades in the industry, fitness industry specifically, with multiple business ventures and a no BS approach to health. Brandon is about to drop some knowledge that will completely rewire the way you think about happiness. And today we're diving deep into rewiring your emotional habits, why happiness is a muscle you can actually train, and destroying toxic positivity myths and the real science of personal transformation. Now, Brandon isn't here to make you feel good, right? He's here to make you feel powerful, and there's no filters and there's no toxic positivity. So are you ready to upgrade your happiness? And one last thing, when we talk about GLP-1s on this episode, we're referring to Ozempic, tirzepatide, semaglutide, those weight loss medications, just so you're not lost. Now, let's get into it. If you're tired of that surface level self-help, welcome to the Hustle for Happiness family, the podcast that challenges you. We're cutting through the fluff, we're breaking patterns, and we're shifting the way you see yourself and your life. Because let's be honest, growth isn't optional. It's so necessary. I'm Courtney Brooke, your host, certified life coach, life bestie. Thank you for showing up for you. Now, let's get into it. All right, Brandon. Welcome to Hustle for Happiness
It's
podcast.
good to be back.
You are back. Do you remember that you were my second guest?
You know, I thought you said I was like the first and the best, but I think second.
Yeah, no, you were the second guest, but the first best.
Oh, okay. I'll take it.
I love it. I mean, I always enjoy seeing you and hearing from you. It's our second time in person. And that is the biggest joy of this podcast for me, is seeing my guests, building the connections, seeing you. I mean, we met on social media. I met your wife through social media years ago when I started my health journey. But one thing about following you on Instagram is, you know, you're always so happy, real, honest. Where did you learn that from?
The happiness thing. That's funny you say that. And I appreciate that, because let's take that as a compliment, because I think being happy is one of those things that is just like, it comes with the personality. And a lot of times it may seem like it's just so easy to be happy all the time. But we were having a conversation with a friend about being happy. And I think, honestly, a lot of it comes from my youth, right? Being raised by happy people. I was around happy people. And I think that I was able to just carry that through. And so I know it sounds kind of cliche to say it's like a choice.
Yeah.
But I think there are times where you just have to ask yourself, like, can I be happy through this? Like, not that it's easy, but happiness can be a choice, I think.
I actually totally agree with that. It's 100% a choice. Hence the podcast, Hustle for Happiness. It takes work. We're all on this journey, but I truly believe that when you think it's a choice, it actually puts the power and the control and the responsibility back into our lives.
Yeah, I love that. The power. I think that's something that I refer to a lot when I'm telling my kids, like, you hold this ball of power, you know, and you get to decide what to do with it. You can give it away and give it to that person that's in control of your power now, whether it's to make you happy or not, or whether you hold that and you get to decide, like, this is my ball of power that I get to choose if I want to be happy. So I love power. That's a great word.
I think power just, doesn't it like feel good too? Like, doesn't it make us feel like, wait, I am in control?
Yeah.
Speaking of just like upbringing and, you know, you're surrounding yourself by positive, happy people. I mean, life isn't always like that, right? Are there times where, you know, you are around people that you're like, this is just draining me? Or how do you deal with those situations?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one, because we don't live in this bubble by ourselves in total control of our own happiness, right? Because there's a lot of extrinsic things, whether it be, you know, work, careers, path that we're on, whether it's our spouse or, friends, their mood also has an impact on us, right? And I think that's something that even to this day, having to work through with a spouse that goes through her own life of emotions and fears and concerns, that can impact me. And how do you navigate that is kind of the thing that I still have to try to figure out, because we're so closely entwined with everything that we do. Speaking of my wife, it's hard to not let her bad moods impact me. Right. And it's like, I want to be happy and I want to allow her to feel my joy and happiness, but it's also, and I think it works the other way around. Of course, I can't think that I'm the happy one and she's not, but your spouse impacts that happiness. And I think for me, it's trying to remain positive, but also sympathetic.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I 100% relate. We just moved from Chicago, full-time back to Wyoming, a week ago. And we were unpacking and James just had this terrible mood and grumpy. And, I was like, this is fun. Like, we're getting grounded. And I was like, you know what? Like, you totally can relate to your spouse's energy, not picking up on those. Like, I mean, that's in our home. Of course, you're going to pick up. And then you have kids, right? So on top of that, I'm sure. But yeah, he was just in this grumpy mood. And I was like, wait a minute, you can snap out of this. Like, what's going on? And for me, I was just like, goodness gracious, I totally don't want to be affected by that. So I relate with that. Those who do have spouses or partners and, maybe that's the one thing they don't want to get in a relationship with. How do you work through that, especially being married? How long?
We're going on 20 years for us.
So drop some wisdom for us newbies out there.
Yeah, that's a fun one, because it really is something that's still day by day where you're just like, because it can happen in reverse. Like I say, I can be the grumpy one and I can come home and I can just tell that I'm bringing this aura into the house, right? Where it's just like, everyone can just tell like, oh, what's wrong with Dad? And they'll ask me, cause it's like, Dad, are you okay? What's going on? And so, but how do you, because I think sympathetic, and I said that earlier, I still want her to feel like I'm not naive to the fact that she's going through something. Yeah. By my just ignorance of blissful, just day-to-day whistling through the house as she's having a tough time. So, but I feel like we can be that light, if you will. We can be that example, which sounds kind of cheesy in itself to be an example to your spouse when they're having a bad mood. But I don't think counteracting it, also being in a bad mood helps. Right. Which I can do. I can also be the one that's like, well, you're bugged and it's gone 2 days and now I'm bugged and you're bugged. And that seems really silly in itself, doesn't it?
But it's true. Like, we're human. Like, how can you not be bugged when someone else is bugged, when you're ruining my mood, so to speak. But again, if we go even back to how we started, then you're giving them power, but then you're also not letting them feel out how they feel. So it is being empathetic to them, but also like, hey, this is my mood. For me, at least, let's talk about the example because it was so fresh yesterday is, do you need a minute to cool off or do your thing to get grounded? I told James, do you need to hop in that cold plunge? Because you're 3 minutes away from turning yourself around. And so I also think it's a partnership. How can I help you get out of that mood? I don't need to leave you on your sad island or you're going through, you and your wife have been through so much 20 something years and you're still it's a partnership. So I also believe in, I see you, but also let's get you out of that. Because again, you said happiness is a choice, right? And so when you see your kids or your wife not choosing that, deep down, let's talk real talk. What really goes through that mind of yours?
Yeah, no, it is frustrating, especially because, and I'll just take a step back. I think that being empathetic to their emotional state, which I've done better as I've gotten older to understand, look, you're going through something that I may not understand.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever that is to you, I understand that it's a big deal. And I don't have to agree with whatever you're going through because maybe that's not how I would react to it. I wouldn't make a big deal over the, whatever your friend said, kind of put you in a bad mood. And now it's echoing through your days. That's not for me to say. Yeah. Right. So I'm empathetic to the fact that whatever you experienced is yours. Mm-hmm. But now it's affecting me. Right. Which is not entirely fair. But if it goes through that time, so the real talk is it does get frustrating. Yep. Because I don't agree with that. I wouldn't react that way. And I almost think that it's silly. Right. The way that you're acting over something so small in my mind.
So what does Brandon Wimpey do in those situations? Bring us into how do you reset? How do you not let that take on? For real?
Yeah.
What is your things?
Yeah. What the best thing that I found over time is, like you mentioned, to communicate that. But the best time to communicate it is when it's not in the heat of those moments. I want to understand how she needs me to be there for her because I am kind of an optimistic person. I am happy most of the time. And so, but that's kind of annoying to somebody that's not happy. And in a moment and they're down and they're frustrated about something, especially if I'm the one that's kind of bringing some of that frustration in if I'm still the happy one, right?
Right.
And so the best thing for us has been to just talk about it when it's not in the heat of the moment. When we're like just out on a date and like, hey, the other day when you were going through that, what could I have done to have been really there for you and also still kind of stay in my happy place where I'm like, hey, look, I'm actually in a pretty good spot. How can I be there for you? And so that's been something that's worked for us because I understand the need that she has a little bit better. A little bit. I emphasize a little bit because I still have a long way to go.
Well, we're always working. It's a journey, right? And I'm sorry, but not sorry, but every year of marriage, every day of marriage is not the same, whether you're married or not. But we as ourselves, if we don't talk about the other person, if we brought it back to ourselves is, hey, I'm not the same every day. So some days, are you not happy? Are there days where you don't have a good day?
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And so that's, I don't know if it goes into the choice, but there's some days where I think as a society, or you see the Instagram or you see people, we can have emotion. And I think that's a thing in relationships is if it's not rainbows and butterflies, then putting in the work is what I'm hearing is putting in the work to communicate with your partner, putting in the work to pull them out of what they're going through or to honor them and where they're at.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing is that I've always said this is that I genuinely want to be a good husband. I do. And in order to be that, in order to fill that role of a good husband that she can say when she's out with her friends, no, I really think that he is good and he really tries and he is there when I need him to be there. That I also have to understand how to work through those phases with her, and in return, she's willing to do that for me. When those days that I am, I have a lot of stress, there's unforeseen things that are thrown at me and I'm trying to deal with them. And I come off quiet, which is not my normal, mode. And so she'll recognize that and she can get frustrated. Is it me? Why are you being quiet? Because then she's now able to recognize and we can work together to bring each other out of it because it happens both ways. And like you say, it's never the same. It's never the same problem. It's never the same. And we're constantly trying to navigate that still.
I love that. It's not permanent, right? It's like what you said. We're still trying to navigate years later. So you mentioned something on your Instagram story about happiness begets happiness.
Yeah.
Let's break that down. Do you think happiness is something people are born with, or do you think we can create that?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a compounding effect with happiness. And what I mean by that is it's just that choice, right? It's a muscle in itself. If we're constantly exercising that choice to be happy, when those times come, it just becomes more and more natural to be happy, And so I do think that there's a compounding effect. And it works the opposite way too. If you're constantly walking into scenarios and you're assuming negative things and unhappy things, it'll follow that. Your mind will follow that path. And so absolutely, I think it begets happiness because it's just one of those things that if you walk into a room and you have an optimistic outlook about who's going to be in there or the conversations that are going to happen, then most likely your brain and your body will follow suit and say, yeah, that was actually a really great experience.
Yeah. I feel like you can seek out what you want, whether it is the bad experience or the not so negative or positive experience. But yeah, you can find what you're looking for, just like you can find anything to the answer to on the internet. I feel like the power of questioning is really where it is.
Yeah.
Right. You have to really articulate that question because you'll find, apples are bad for you, or you shouldn't breathe oxygen. I mean, you'll find whatever. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And so that kind of reminds me of what you're saying in terms of you'll find what you're looking for. But what are you looking for in your experience, in your life, with your relationships, so to speak?
Yeah. Do you have something like that in your recent that you could say I went into that was kind of a negative outlook or positive outlook and it followed exactly the way I thought it was going to go?
As we set up for this podcast today, I was like, yes, I'm rocking and rolling. Just did a photo shoot right before this for my website and the audio isn't working. But it's like that I went in with actually the opposite, a positive, and I got the audio is working, you guys, but it's funny because you keep trying to get better and get better. But I think for me is honestly what we talked about is rolling with it. If we have an outcome that's not expected, I'm not going to, again, how do I keep veering positive? I'm not saying toxic positivity. Yes, it sucks that it took me a little longer. I get that. But what I'm saying is, okay, just keep rolling with it. Keep leaning towards how can I make the most of this? How is this an opportunity? What does this mean for me? Instead of pouring me, I knew this day was going to be bad. Oh, they come in threes. I hate when people say that. And I don't say hate often, but when people say things come in threes, you're looking for the second and the third one. It's
Absolutely.
kind of like what you're reminding me of.
No, that's exactly. And this podcast was exactly it, where I think that's a prime example where you came in with a positive outlook. And even though there was a problem, because we can't foresee that everything that's going to be thrown at us, you continue to roll through it in a positive way. Where if it would have been the opposite, you would have been like, oh, this went longer than I thought. And this photo shoot didn't happen, and then you roll through this and that happened. It could have derailed you. It really could have pulled you off track. And this podcast could have probably not even happened.
I mean, you asked me if are you okay, Courtney? Are you okay? Like, do you need to breathe? I'm like, just roll with it. Yeah. I mean, I remember when James and I were first dating and I lived in San Diego and he lived in Newport Beach, and it was about a 90-minute drive and we had 3 hours to catch our international flight to Greece. And I left my passport in San Diego, maybe 4 hours, 5 hours. James is still sitting here. I look at him. I'm like, what was the time frame? Anyways, day of, I didn't have my passport. I said, all right, I'll see you in a second. I'm going to go get my passport. I didn't think, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it. If you allow like that stuff to creep in, it's going to creep in. But for me, like, I just was like, okay, like I left my passport, I'm going to go. But what helps me through some of these things, including the podcast, and maybe you can add on to this, is seeing the outcome. I know I'm going to produce a great podcast. What's the outcome I want? I'm going to Greece. Why am I complaining that my passport got stuck? Or, oh my gosh, like things don't happen, but what is that end result that I'm still achieving and I can still get there? I still want it to go well. But I think for me, it's visualizing, oh my God, I'm going to Greece. Oh my God, I'm sitting with Brandon Wimpey. Like, let's not let all of these things go by and let the gratitude and the grace of the day go in front of us.
Totally. Is that natural for you? Is that like this the way you naturally are?
I mean, my blood type is B positive, just so you know. No, I mean, it is B positive, okay. But I think because of my background, I literally had nothing. And so anything from above, I always tell myself, you literally had nothing growing up. I'm not saying 10 up. My adoptive mom gave me a great life.
Yeah.
But I literally, when you had nothing, everything is great. And I think that for me, it's that happiness begets happiness. It's constantly using that. And now that muscle is so strong. It's like, think of like your quad. My happiness muscle is strong. Like it's a choice. I've had to work for it. But I mean, there's pictures of me being adopted and I still have a smile on my face. You would not know.
Yeah.
You would not know.
I think that's a gift that you're given. Perspective, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not everyone has that perspective. Yeah. And so to be able to, and it is, and I think James can probably attest to this, that when you're around happy people, it makes you want to be happy, right? Yeah. And I think that carries through. I mean, you carry a light about you that every time I've been around you, it's just something that just, I feel better. I mean, and I think that you want to give that gift to people as well. And so I think that it is something that based on your experiences and the things that you've gone through where you know the other side of happiness, that it's like, hey, like you say, anything above this level is good. No matter if I have to get my passport, And so anyway, kudos to you.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. I feel like it used to be such a curse because I used to like, oh, you're always so happy. You're always so happy. You're always so happy. You're always so, and I was like, is there something wrong with me? But I literally I always there's an opportunity here. And that's like the message in my head is like, how can I see this as a lesson, an opportunity? How am I being redirected? Where's my gift? And I know it sucks, but for instance, James and I, we're talking about budgeting and pulling back. And, I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to spend like crazy, one, in our marriage, but two, before we were even married. I loved looking the best. I love all those things, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I know I can spend. Now let's see how much I can pull back. Let's have fun with
Challenge
it.
Accepted.
Let's call it balling on a budget. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so for me, trust me, it's not like, oh, I'm all of a sudden I'm on a budget. I'm good at it. It takes work and the hard conversations, and finances are not my thing. And it's not easy. Gosh, that's probably in our relationship, the one thing that I know I can get better at, but I'm like, gosh, this is my time to learn this lesson. I've been kicking the can for way too long. And so rather than getting mad at him, it's where's my joy? Where's my responsibility?
Yeah.
That's joy to me, is taking responsibility of the things.
Yeah, that's so rad. All you're doing is taking a positive approach to a new thing. Something's got to change. You're changing something in your life and you had a choice, right? Didn't you? You had a choice. I can either make this the worst experience of my life.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. I'm going to resist it. I'm going to push back, or I'm going to look as an opportunity. I'm going to be excited.
Yeah. It's happening either way. So I'm going to have to do it either way. I might as well put a smile on my face and skip.
Yeah. It's like the audio on this. You couldn't force it to work. You couldn't just will it to work. You just have to roll through it.
I'm my manager is going to have fun with this one. I love you, but it's going to be good. Hey, amazing listeners, it's Courtney Brooke here with just a little favor to ask and a reward that you won't want to miss. Did you know that you could get a free copy of The Daily Stoic just by helping us out? Yep, it's true. And here's how you can get this awesome book. 1, leave a review. Head to your podcast app and tell us what you think of the Hustle for Happiness podcast. Yes, we're asking your opinions, but don't worry, we can handle it. 2, rate the podcast. Give us a rating, 5 stars if you're feeling generous, and 1 star if you're feeling just a little rebellious. 2, share and tag. Post a screenshot of your review on social media and tag Hustle for Happiness podcast so we can see that you're awesome. But seriously, that's all you have to do though to get the Daily Stoic on me. Why? Because I love this book and I know you will too. Plus, your support helps us reach even more amazing people like you. So get to it, go leave that review, slap on that rating, and share it with the world for your free book. And also, thanks for being the best listeners. Now, let's get back to the episode. Have you had anything in your life where like you can recall like you've had some of those pivotal moments where you're like, gosh, this is not what I wanted, but gosh, working through that is a blessing, or working through something hard in your life because you've done a lot. Does anything come to mind for you when you think about challenge, or if you chose the negative,
Yeah, no, I think for me, it's just a constant opportunity. I see these all the time, and we were just talking about a business, right? James and we were talking about a business. I had a business that we went through COVID as a fitness franchise, and we had a really good time doing it. And after COVID, we had to make a tough decision. And we made the tough decision. We closed one of our locations down. And I think from that point, I had a choice to either be bitter and to question my abilities as a business operator and franchise owner and all the things, or I could try to learn from the lessons on what I would do different, what I would do next time, what would I do different in contract negotiations, what would I do different in hiring and firing, all these things. And again, it's funny that it just came up in a conversation, but I know now that that was a positive experience. It sucked. I lost some money and, I had to make some hard decisions that affected lives. But ultimately, I think for me personally, having to look back, and again, at the time, I didn't probably handle it the best and the most optimistic and positive because it was a tough time. But each day that moved past that, I try to learn from it, saying like, all right, what would I have done different? Because those opportunities will come again and I'll have to try to make those decisions, but make them better. So I think even those little things that we can do to learn from, say it's a disagreement with a spouse and I didn't handle myself well. I can either blame her and be mad, or I can say, hey, look, I want to move through this and become better. And so I think those little opportunities that happen all the time, that's how you strengthen that muscle that you're talking about.
Yeah. And I love that piece on how can I learn from this rather than beat ourselves up, because I know I'm guilty of it sometimes. And the listeners are too. Like, we're human. We naturally default to ourselves. But isn't that crazy that we naturally think of like, oh, I messed up, I did wrong. But we can also put it back on ourselves of, oh my gosh, how can I take responsibility for this? How can I learn from this? Where's like the gift, And so I hear that. Talk to me about, reinforcing negativity or rewiring for joy. What are some ways, because you mentioned negativity briefly, but what are some ways people can actually rewire their brain to experience more happiness?
Yeah, I think my wife is a prime example of this. And I wish she were here because I'm talking a lot about her. But she was raised in kind of a toxic environment. There was a lot of contention. There was a lot of pitting people against each other. And it was kind of this push-pull all the time with relationships, right? And so she naturally defaults to kind of a negative outlook on things. Like, oh, they don't like me, or, oh, that's not fair, or that, kind of an aggressive kind of state.
Yeah.
And she used to be even more, and she's learned from that, like, that it's a choice.
Yeah.
She has a choice to make every time she walks in a room and thinks like, oh, that person doesn't like me. That's a very negative outlook. Like, they haven't even said a word to you. Yeah. They gave you a look or a smile or something, and you devise this negative narrative immediately without words spoken. And so I think that that's the kind of thing that negative outlook or that negative track record, I don't know the term for it, but it'd be something that you've just developed over a long period of time, right? From the time maybe you were as a child, the way that your subconscious mind works, where you're constantly defaulting to these negative things.
Yeah.
But I've watched her become aware of it. And I think that's probably the main point that I would make, is that you have to become aware in the moment when you're making this decision to say, I'm going to think negatively with no reason behind it. Or I'm going to say, maybe it's a positive thing, and maybe they're liking my hair, or they like the shoes, or whatever it may be. And I've just noticed she's gotten a lot better
It's so good.
at that.
Yeah.
And so I do think a lot of it has to do with the way that you thought as a kid, the way that your parents communicated with you, the way that your friends spoke, the kind of the circle that you grew up in. And I think that that's where, my experience was different. There was no negative talk, and there was no, frustration in the home that I was aware of with siblings or anything else. And so more than just the natural kind of thing, but with her, it was contentious, and she carried that through.
And I feel like a lot of us can relate to that, whether it's with families growing up with that talk, or constantly hearing, oh, this, or why are you wearing that? Or, walking into a room, that judgment on ourselves. And we're hard on ourselves, especially women. I think it's very judgy, not everywhere, but I think when you look at someone else and you constantly reflect on yourself. But when Quincy does do that, what do you do for her? I'm curious. How do you support her in those moments? That's really sweet that you guys can share those things together like that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard at times because she has her narrative, right? And to try to tell her that that's incorrect is not the best move, I've learned, right? Just to say, no, that's not what they were thinking, because I'm doing the same thing, just in reverse, saying I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they were, and maybe you were right.
Yeah.
And so I will ask her just more questions and say, well, why would they think that? And kind of let her almost prove herself, like, oh, you may be right that they didn't think that, because she needs to kind of move through those thoughts on her own to realize the next time, maybe I won't automatically jump to the negative. And so to try to get her to break it down has been, it's been fun to see her kind of work through those things. And she has gotten a lot better over the years.
Yeah.
And it's funny that I say walking into a room, because there's a lot of that, like, she's just that judgmental thing that she automatically jumps to, where it's negative.
It's almost like she's learned that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure maybe she's learned that younger. And it's, again, we learn these things growing up, but for me, it's like completely opposite. Is like, well, I look good. Like, come back. Like, for me, when I think of hearing Quincy, I go, well, again, you're giving them so much power. You dress how you want, like, bring it back to you. I chose this for me, and that's what makes me happy. Right. And it's not that simple, right? It's not. How do you feel about, the action of playing in a role of happiness versus thinking positive? Like, do you feel there's a difference?
As I just react to that comment, I would say that they're synergistic for sure, but I could think of them differently. I mean, happiness is also just a feeling, and it comes and goes, right? Like, it's some days you feel really happy, and other days you can feel not so happy. So that's kind of just it's a feeling that we have. But positivity, I think, is probably one of those things that's just your perception of the world around you. It's not, I don't know that positivity is a feeling. As I kind of think through this question and try to differentiate them, we can look at scenarios as being positive. We can feel positive about what's going on around us. But I think the internal side of that is the happiness part, where, I like the thought of being a positive person, and that gets us through these scenarios.
Yeah.
We can be unhappy going through a scenario, I think, and still be positive about the outcome. It's just like the business. I closed my business down and I was unhappy about it.
Yeah.
But the positivity is that I was moving away from this bad scenario. So I think that would be how I could use those two terms, and make them synergistic, but also be different in nature.
What comes to mind for me is like, gosh, it sucks cutting out sugar, but it's positive because I'm helping my body work better. Like, I think of those two things, like, especially because you're in the health industry, you work really hard on your physique, your whole family's fit. So that's inbred in your family, but you guys you're very healthy people. And so I think, like, cutting out sugars or making those choices, it might be frustrating or make you angry, but it's a positive outcome. So it can to me, I think of like, it can be like yin yang.
They can exist at the same time.
Yeah, they can exist at the same time. It's an interesting thought, though, as I just planted that one on you, because I'm like, happiness and positivity. You hear this term, I don't know if you've heard this, toxic positivity.
Yeah, you said that earlier. I was going to ask you.
It's almost like, it's like this buzzword going around, and I've heard it before. Here, let's look it up. We're going to look it up. Positivity. So toxic positivity, according to AI on Google, is the pressure to maintain an upbeat, positive mindset, even in the face of hardship, which can invalidate genuine emotions and hinder emotional processing.
What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's insane. Like, what the hell? Heck, whatever. It's my podcast. I can say what I want. Okay, so when I break down this definition, is the pressure to maintain an upbeat. that the pressure, I think, is up to the person, but a positive mindset, even in the face of hardship, like, again, hardship, what's hardship? That's that hardship. There's a hardship in everything in life. So is suffering. But if we take all that out there, actually, it doesn't exist. And so what's hardship? I think that's, to me, and then which can invalidate genuine emotions. I don't know. I don't believe in it. I don't know, toxic positivity. Maybe it's someone who's overly positive even through the hard stuff. But I guess that's me.
Yeah.
I guess that's me.
Call me toxic positive then.
Call me TP for short. Because it's a choice.
It's a choice. That sounds like what that's saying is that when you make that choice that it's toxic.
And these words, like, I'm glad we're talking about this because it's been on my mind. Like, toxic positivity is like overly positive, but what's the alternative?
Yeah.
Wallowing? I don't know. What do you feel?
Yeah. I think when you said it earlier, my mind went to kind of a fake positive. You know, like when people, you're like over the top, like kind of cheesy positive. You know, and you've been around those people that are like, it's like, it just doesn't feel authentic.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought.
I acknowledge my emotions. I'm like I said, it sucks cutting out sugar. Gosh, I'm like frustrated. But the positive piece is, you know, I'm going to feel better.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
So I don't know, like maybe it's just the emphasis on invalidating your emotions. But if someone's aware of their emotions, I'm still going to choose to be positive through that because it's happening.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting.
It sounds like they took a positive and made it a negative term, you know?
Yeah.
Like to work through something a hardship.
Yeah.
They're almost like you say, they're wanting you to wallow in it.
Yeah.
Toxic.
And it's a label and people love labels. So you love.
The age of labels. It's the age of labels.
I love watching Brandon's story, you guys. I'm laughing because like, I love how honest you are on your page. No weird faces. It's really amazing.
All right.
I appreciate the genuinity and the candidness. And so if you guys follow Brandon after this episode, I'm sure you all will. You're real. And I want to just give you a little humble brag over there because you show up on your page genuinely.
Thank you.
And I was just talking to the photographer before this, and it's like, why is everyone so offended? You know, and that's a whole nother thing. But people, like, you can't have opinions anymore. People love their labels in terms of, Anyways, I want to kind of switch the page a little bit. This idea of rewiring is so powerful to me because it's the same in health. Mm-hmm. And just like happiness, people get stuck in patterns, believing things have to be hard to be real or hard to be fit. You know, on your Instagram story, you talk about GLPs, which is GLP-1s. Kind of break that down basically for people who are just tuning in. Then we'll elaborate on health and that whole thing and rewiring.
Yeah. Well, I think rewiring is a powerful tool. I really do. I think it's a change and a positive change that people are trying to make. And it's a process. And so I think the rewiring of habits and routines and rituals is why that term exists and why you use it in a really constructive way. And I think when it comes to the GLP-1s, I think we've, having been in the health and fitness industry for many years, it's so individualized and each person has gone through, you know, and I don't want to dive too much back into the childhood traumas and histories but everybody has them and they do. And whether we want to accept,
we all had a childhood, let's be real.
Yeah. And how you were trained, taught, and educated to think about food, it carries into your adulthood. And that's why some people have a tremendous hard time watching what they eat because it's tied to emotions. It's tied to so many things that I am so sympathetic for so many that have struggled for so many years silently and in so many ways. And I think, you know, to bring up the new, they're not even new, but they're new to the market in the attention of the masses are these GLP-1s and these medications that have really changed the way that people can lose weight. And I think they've initially carried a really negative connotation. I think the medical community was really worried about how they were being introduced and the usage and doses. And I think that they've really, and I say they, meaning the medical community, has got a really good grasp on them. I think they have a better understanding outside of just the diabetic community for weight loss. And me, for one, I can say I'm grateful for them. I think that properly used, properly dosed to the right patients and individuals has been a huge benefit for those patients that need it. And so, and I think that rewiring is where some of these medications can come in and play a part. And, you know, the future will tell how people use them. And that's why I would say that if it is something that people are going to be using, to do it under direct medical care and attention from somebody that's experienced doing it. Because it is good because there are so many that would silently suffer. And the comorbidities of just being overweight definitely can outweigh, some of maybe the side effects from these medications. And so I hope that hits
No,
on
I
kind of
think
where your mind was
no,
going.
I think of like, why do people have such a bad stigma with it? Like, there's insulin for diabetes, there's medication for blood pressure. Like, this is just a newer form, but for the health industry, and this is also, I feel like there's such a bad stigma. Maybe it's because, oh, you have to be fit, you have to put in hard work. And so you're cheating. Like, I'm trying to get grasp around that because there's such oh, I see these pages of, oh, this celebrity's on this and this celebrity's on Ozempic and this, like, where do you think that is?
Yeah, it's
Comes
interesting
from?
because diet pills and everybody's wanted the quick fix as they call it for so many years. And I think they've always kind of carried that with them, that like, oh, you're cheating or you're doing,
Yeah.
but like you say, there's so many supplements and so many things out there that are people trying to take and use to try to, again, supplement their lifestyle, supplement their diet, supplement their nutrition. And so I think looking at it as a cheat code, people have kind of taken that negatively.
Totally.
I think it's a misunderstanding is really what it is. Now, let's talk about women that may be already somewhat fit in the eyes of society or their peers that are wanting to take it or do take it and lose the extra 5, 8, 10 pounds that they've been insecure about or not, or wanted to lose and just haven't been able to lose it. I think that's where a lot of people are like, well, you don't even need it. Why would you take it? And so I think for that, again, there's one thing I've learned being in this industry for as long as I have is it doesn't matter your pant size on how you feel about yourself.
I mean, I agree. If you don't feel good about yourself, like if it's one injection or one thing that can change your life to live that quality of life, why are people so upset about that? Like one thing, get the boob job if you want to get the boob job, get the hair transplant if you want to get the hair transplant. It might not even be cosmetic though. It could be, paint your door red. Who cares, And I think that, if you're one decision away, if it's 5 pounds that you want to lose, then your life will change. I think that's such a beautiful piece. Speaking of myths, is it true that you can that myth of you're going to regain all that weight back?
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that's still kind of left out. I mean, because what this drug is doing is it's again rewiring a bit of how the hormones are communicating with the brain as far as hunger signals, as far as your insulin levels and all those things. And so hunger is different, right? When you're using this medication, which is part of the design of it. And so will your hunger come back if you stop taking the drug? Yes. Will you be able to control it? That's up to the individual. And so I think that there is that, similar to men taking hormones, whether they're taking testosterone, will their hormones regain once they've come off? There's all these things that of course it's going to be different. It's going to be different. Your hunger will be different. Most likely there will be some weight gain, but is it because of the medication or is it because of the calories that you're intaking? And so I think that's a lot of it up to the individual. But I think one thing that is being done is people are learning hunger signals better. They're learning calorie control better because I don't need to eat all of the time because a lot of times I'm just eating because I'm bored.
Right. And it's emotional, like stress comes in. I mean, I have clients and friends that, food is a big part of their life. When stressed, they reach for sugar or they can't just break sugar. I mean, sugar is a huge addictive thing besides alcohol. But I also feel like if you have something that can help you break that and you've been battling it your whole life, this could be the answer. You've tried everything. And there are people, I mean, you work with clients, losing weight regardless of the drug. How happy are those clients when they see the results?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's so empowering. And that's one of the things that I wish it's a gift that I wish that I could give to everybody is that feeling of confidence, of taking control. It's not the weight loss. Like there is something about losing weight and feeling better in your clothes and everything. But like I mentioned earlier, happiness when it comes to how you feel about yourself isn't your pant size. I know plus size girls that have lost some weight or have toned up and feel amazing and just feel like they've won the lottery and their confidence is through the roof. And they're still bigger than they maybe would like to be, but they've gained the control to know I am actually in control of this. I can lose this weight. I know how to do it, And so again, there's petite little gals that are 105 pounds. And I hate to put a number, but it helps us quantify it.
Yeah.
That are so miserable, and they're just so insecure and unsatisfied with the way that they look. And so please, if I could say that just happiness doesn't come with the pant size because it really just comes down to that. Like I'm in control. I'm able to do this. And to know these women that are able to to know that they are in control of how they're operating their bodies is the empowerment that just gives them that power, right? We talked about, we started
Right.
with. They're
Yeah.
like, I hold this. This
Yeah,
is
I mean, the word today is power. I mean,
Yeah.
and there's different ways we can attain that. And with that being said, the girls that, or even the guys, whoever takes the drug, let's say that, you can't be on it long term, so to speak. So knowing your expertise in the fitness and health industry, like what do you think would complement that? What's some ideals for those who are getting off of it to keep the success, to not be that stereotype or be the statistic of you're going to regain that weight back?
Yeah. I would say I still don't know if the verdict's been proven that it's not a long-term thing.
Yeah.
I think that there could even be situations where so-called microdosing, or where you're on just a very small volume of these drugs, is something that you could be on for long phases.
That's awesome.
And so I think
That's
that's still an option for some, again, under the right care. And I would say that, but to answer your question, it goes back to just being everything in moderation, right? I think that if we can control what we eat, our intake, and make it a priority, and I don't think anybody needs to be on strict diets to maintain this. I think it's just having a plan and knowing that you can stick to it is going to be the key for most people. But again, it will be different. I don't want to downplay what the side effects would be. And I don't say side effects, but that's exactly what it will be. If you come off of these medications, your hunger is going to come up, the ghrelin response is going to come back up, and those hunger cues are going to respond. And so it's easy enough to say, well, then just monitor your calories. But that scientifically is what it is. You just have to maintain a certain energy balance, which is energy in, energy out, calories in, your exercise. And so it's that doesn't go away. Even while you're on it, it doesn't go away.
Yeah. And I feel like when you're on that drug, you're learning the new you, which is eating less. So you're going to have to figure out how to get those calories. And if you're not eating as hungry, the nutrients, right? There's the other side of it that people say, speaking of myths, is you won't gain muscle or you will lose muscle. What is your experience knowing, just in general, you're a plethora of knowledge in all this?
Yeah. There's no direct muscle response to the drug. There's nothing that makes her lose that either gains or makes it decrease. It's your food, it's your nutrition.
Okay.
Right. And so what happens is that this drug will decrease your hunger. Your eating will be less, right? Your intake will be less, and therefore muscle deteriorate. Not from the drug, but from the nutrition side. And so my advice with this is again, you have to maintain, just like anybody else that it's on or off the drug, your protein balance, how well you're exercising, your strength training, your protein intake. And again, even your calorie intake is going to matter, because it's not how less, if your goal is to see how thin you can get and how much weight you can lose, you'll win. You'll win all the medals to achieve that. Now, if you want to be healthy in doing this and set a goal to lose whatever the weight loss goal that you have, you still have to manage your nutrition like you're off of it. You have to maintain your protein intake for muscular development, muscular maintenance, and then also you want to maintain a certain calorie range to know that you're giving your body the nutrition that it needs to move. And the drug will do its job. It will. But you also have to do your job and do the nutrition side.
Yeah, and I'm thinking as you say this, it's not like a weight loss drug. You're describing, let's see it as a weight loss tool now. And it's a tool, and not every tool works for every screw, right? So some people it's a plug and play, others it doesn't work for them. And I think rather than judging or making comments out of inferiority or lack of knowledge is, hey, that's a tool for them. Appreciate them. And I'm bringing this up is because I just see a lot of hate and judgment. And if that's one thing that like we can all be taking from this podcast is, let them be happy.
Yeah.
Let them choose that. And I really appreciate the tools and the knowledge. As we wrap up today's podcast, I want to how do you believe in health and happiness and combining those? If we could put what we've talked about together and leave the podcast with that.
Yeah, I love that's a beautiful question. I think when it comes to the happiness side and how our health is involved with it, there's a lot in our environment that we have zero control over, that we just have to take what comes at us and we get the choice again to respond to it how we will. But our health is one thing that we can control the majority of. If you think about the way that you manage your food, the way that you manage your health, no one's really having much impact on that for you. You get to choose that. And that's one thing that I'd like to impress on people is that you're nearly 100% in control of your health and your nutrition and your diet and your exercise. And I know we all have busy schedules, and I know that there are things, extrinsic things that play a role into our schedule and time. But of all the things that we can manage, our health is one of them. And we should be stewards over that and take advantage of the things that we do have control over.
I mean, I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
You bring your running shoes or no?
I have heels.
Okay.
It might be challenging today. I know I can run in heels. I mean, I know I can run in running shoes, but let's try heels today.
Okay.
Where can listeners, viewers find you, Brandon?
Yeah, pretty simple. With being in health and fitness, my last name's Wimpey, so it's pretty easy to remember. But really, just through my Instagram, my first name Brandon, B Wimpey on Instagram is really the best place, and you can get all your political, my political views.
Yes,
some horse riding here and there.
Yep,
right?
I mean, you got some swag.
Okay.
Yeah, country boy. Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Hugs.
Yay.
All right, HFH fam, that's a wrap. But before you go, let's talk about Happier Hour. Think of it like hiring a personal trainer for your mindset. You can do this all alone, or you can have someone help you, guide you, push you, and help you see things you wouldn't normally see on your own. And just like training your body, one good session can seriously change everything. Now, I don't want money to be the reason you're staying stuck. So I created this specialty coaching session to get you moving. DM me Happier Hour at Hustle for Happiness Podcast Instagram, or just click the links below in the show notes and book your session. Oh, and don't forget, you can watch this episode live on YouTube at Hey Courtney Brooke and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Thank you again for showing up for you. Until next time, keep growing, keep pushing, and I'll see you back here soon. Love you guys.